kind of a scary thing to recognize that the Clean Water Acts were passed in the 1970s, and the majority of pollutants that got listed in those acts were actually listed back in the 1970s. But if you think about the chemical industry itself, it's developed thousands of different chemicals since that time, and most of those actually have not been listed by the Department of Environmental Quality. So there are many, many chemicals that are not being filtered or that are flowing into our rivers, that are coming into our bodies that we aren't even aware that's happening to us. We assume because our public entities are, doing the filtering of water that we're being safe, but the reality is there are many ways that we're not safe when we start talking about water. So I'd like to take a shift here and turn us back towards thinking about the rivers and the water from the perspective of Native Americans. And we're privileged tonight to have Marc Franco with us. Marc is the headman for the Winnemem-Wintu tribe and keeper of the ceremony for the Winnemem people. He's married to Colleen Sisk Franco, and he is the father of two. Marc is deeply involved in assisting Colleen in maintaining the Winnemem-Wintu culture and ceremonies and acts as the government liaison and spokesman for the Winnemem tribe. Marc?
Well, thank you all once again. Those of you that were here for this morning's session, tonight's performance will be completely different. So if you weren't here this morning, you're not going to hear the same thing tonight. Talk about rivers, talk about dams. Damn those dams. Don't like them. They do nothing. They serve no useful purpose. No useful purpose whatsoever. They block up the rivers. They keep the fish from going home. They become stagnant, and they just are a waste of money and time. So if you have the opportunity, tear down a dam. What I'd like you to do is kind of close your eyes a little bit and think back maybe 300-400 years and imagine the sound of the river running by you. You live out in the mountains, the river runs next to your house, makes a good sound. Fish come up, deer come down to it, birds fly in, plants grow everywhere. And you're a young person, and you live on that river. Your people have lived on that river for thousands of years. You know each inch of that river intimately. And as that water goes by and the years go by you, and you've gotten older, and your children now are listening to the water, and they're listening to the fish as they come up and run, and they listen to the animals as they go down to the river and drink, and the birds are flying in. There's another sound you hear, the sound of wagon wheels coming along the roads that have been built on the high plains above your river. And so now the deer don't come down as often. The birds don't fly in such great numbers as they did before. And you notice that your water that was running clear and smooth and making all that nice noise for you in the morning is now muddy. And the years go by, and your children are now the age that you were. Wars have come and gone, and another one's looming on the horizon. And the water isn't as clear as it was. It's not running as fast as it was down by your place. There are no more deer that come in because they've all been killed. The birds don't fly in there anymore either because of all the noise and mining going on around where you are. And so as time goes on, and they come and they have killed your families, they've killed your relations, the deer, they've moved you from one place to the other. But you're fortunate because you're a Winnemem, and you were able to stay in most of the places that you called home all those years in what was the government's term of allotments. Your villages are now allotment lands. And the water's in your place are still pretty good. And it's now 1938. And now it's 1939. And now it's 1940. And your numbers that were once in the 14,000s are down to a mere handful. There's maybe 395 of you left at the turn of the century, and probably less in the 1940s. Your great-great-grandparents are gone. You've been sent to boarding schools. Your children are still on the river. And now this war that was looming on the horizon again, just over the hill, you can hear it. And they take you off and you go and fight. And you're proud, you wear a uniform, you go across the oceans, you kill people in villages that look pretty much like you. You kill people in towns that don't really look much like you. And then that war is over, and you open your eyes, and you come back. And that river that you once had in your house that was right there on the river has been bulldozed. The river doesn't flow free anymore. Your house is gone, just like the houses of those people in the islands that you killed. And there's a dam that blocks up your river. The fish no longer can come up. The deer no longer can come down. And the birds that fly over, fly over. They have no place to land. What was once a paradise for you is now a recreational lake for those people who came in great numbers to your area. What's it like to be a Winnemem? That story is kind of what it was like to be a Winnemem. But it didn't end with the building of that dam. The destruction and the pain that was caused by it continued today, because they're talking about raising that dam again and flooding even more of your land. So we created quite a picture, didn't we? We started out with this Eden-like place, which many of the Indians all around the United States lived in, until people came and progress followed. And with progress comes destruction, unfortunately. And with destruction comes the disruption of village and family cohesiveness. So what's it like being a Winnemem? You've gone through history. You've come from a place on a beautiful mountain where that water started, flows down the valley. And now you're an outcast in your own country. You're not recognized as an Indian by anybody. And you're struggling to hold on with your fingertips. Your fingernails are all ragged, and you're just barely hanging on. But you still go back to those places that you know of that are in the water, and you still go to those places that are out of the water that were not discovered and destroyed. So what's it like to be a Winnemem? Well, we have a bunch of Winnemem people here in the audience that came up. And if you were to talk to them, they would tell you that it's not easy being a Winnemem. But they'll also tell you that they're proud to be a Winnemem because of the long history that the tribe has, and the long history of doctoring, and the long history of tribal survival that they have. And while the United States government doesn't recognize the Winnemem don't recognize the United States government. Back in 2004, the Winnemem declared war on the United States. Earlier, my chief told you that it wasn't against the people of the United States, which is true. We're not at war against you. We're at war against your government. And we're at war against that government because of the genocidal practices that are carried out against tribal people in this country every day. We are standing at the front edge of a battle line that has now grown to almost encircle the United States, that lower 48. Because tribal people are now standing up and standing proudly to say, you're not bringing the tar sands oil through our territory. You're not going to run the natural gases through our territory. You're not going to come in and take more uranium from our territory. You're not going to come in and take more coal from our territory. You're not going to come in and take more trees from our territory. And you know what? You're not going to take any more of our territory because we're not going to stand for it. Each and every one of you here, as a relative of mine, should be saying the same thing. You are not coming in to take any more of these things, dam any more of our rivers, destroy any more of our fish, kill any more of the birds, or cut out the cultures of the people who were here or the cultures of the people who came here seeking a better life. That is not what this country should stand for. It is not what this country was built for. Everybody that came here was looking for a place to practice their religion. Tribal people already had that place. Shasta Dam is just one of the many examples of the practices of a country that really doesn't care about its indigenous people, and is one of those places that we are fighting so hard to stop not only the continued destruction of our place, but stop the destruction of other places as well. Because as I said at the beginning, dams serve no purpose. Sure, you can back up water, right? You can back up water. But as we've heard in all of the other speakers today, that isn't going to give you another drop to drink. Because in the most instance, that water that's being backed up in your backyard is going to be sent to some place way far away to grow cotton in the desert, watermelons where there's no water. So I guess these are imported watermelons. And it's going to be then sold to development to bring more people in so that you have more people drawing on the limited resource that's being wasted. Wow. What a concept for a country that says it has so many things to give. They've given away your birthright. They've given away your ability to drink water. They've given away your ability to be people. That is just not right. Shasta Dam is one example. The Winnemem people have been fighting Shasta Dam since we first came on this earth, I think, because we knew somewhere deep in our history, in our genetic pattern, much like the salmon that we're going to hear about in a little bit, we knew that at some point there was going to be a device, a thing that was going to keep us from going home. Yeah, our people went off and fought every war of the United States. On the last day of World War I, Francis Furlot, the keeper of the house, the dance house at Decus on the McCloud River, died on the last day of World War I. When they do all of the discussion of who died on that, when you see those programs that say, oh, look at this, look for the name Francis Furlot. That was a Winnemem Wintu, last day of World War I. In World War II, people from that young man with the hat right there, his family died in World War II, serving his country. My wife's father served on an aircraft carrier. My father served on troop transports, driving the LSTs, taking troops to shore. One of my uncles was killed at Iwo Jima. Another one was shot down at Iwo Jima and spent 7 days in a raft in the ocean. They did that not just for that flag. They did that to protect the country, the land. Shasta Dam was built, and there was nobody left at home to fight the government to stop them from raising it. But we are still here today, and we will fight the raise of the dam. We have a ceremony that's coming up, and if necessary, we'll bring back another of the ghost dance and the dream dances, and we will dance, because our warriors, of which these young men that are here with us today, have committed to be with me, to fight the government to the last. And if necessary, we will die this time to protect our country, to protect our lifeway, and to protect the women who carry our traditions. These projects that they put out there are just projects. I've asked people in the government, what does this mean to you? Is this something that's really that important to you? At the end of the day, will you go home and take off your suit and say, oh, I don't have to worry about that project anymore? Or will you carry it to sleep with you at night thinking, how am I going to do this? We can't go home and take off a suit and say we're no longer Winnemem. We are Winnemem 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, unless it's leap year. But we're Winnemem all the time. Shasta Dam, the blockage of rivers. California seems to think that rivers need to be blocked. Our friend Billy Frank from the Northwest Indian Fisheries up in Washington tells us about the dead zones in the ocean. Some of them 400 to 500 miles long, where there's no oxygen. Birds come and land on it and die. The fish can't survive in it. Why is that? Because the rivers are blocked, and the nutrients and the oxygen can't be regenerated as the water comes down. Remember I said, think about this, listen to that water going by you. It's not happening anymore. And that's happening from Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California. We have to wake up. One of the things that Florence Jones, our last leader, ran our tribe for 68 years, said, when my wife asked her, well, what do you think about this? Do you think these things are going to change? And she said, you know, sometimes we just have to pray a little bit harder for things to be right. Because people just can't be dumb and die. They'll have to wake up, because you just can't be dumb and die. That's what we're hoping for those of you that are in the universities and the colleges, that you use your education. Don't just be dumb and die. Use that education to help figure out ways to cause new energy production. They have all those rivers that could run free, and they have wave energy that they're talking about putting those turbines in the ocean that'll unfortunately impair the whales and the schooling fish. But what about if they were to pick places on rivers that are running really fast all the time, or even in the canal in California, the one that runs all the way down the state, and put those wave-generated turbines in there? Nothing's going to be running up and down those streams. If you were to generate power through the canals and put solar panels over the top to keep the evaporation from happening, imagine how much energy you could produce. And then you could take down these dams and let the rivers run free. So what's it like being a Winnemem? Some of us are bitter. Some of us are angry. But some of us have still been able to maintain that love of everyone and everything. That's what it's like to be a Winnemem. You have suffered for hundreds of years now, but you've never given up your identity. You've never given up who you are as people. The dams, they don't define us. What defines us is the fact that Winnemem means middle water, and middle water is the McCloud River. And if you ask us who we are, we say we are the Winnemem Wintu, the middle water people. That's what defines us. We are children of the Creator. We are children who are related to everything around us. And we hope that our young people will grow up to be good human beings, because that's all we ask of them, to be good human beings. I don't care if my children go off and become some kind of scientist or some kind of educated person with all those letters behind their name. Earlier today I told you, I don't have PhD behind my name. I have a couple of letters that are behind there, but the one that I'm the proudest of is the designation that was given me by an Indian person who was responding to my statement that I didn't have all those letters.
That just means piled high and deep.
Yeah, PhD, piled high and deep. He said I was an SAI. An SAI, Marc Franco, SAI, smart-ass Indian. And I'm proud of that. I carry that one. I'm going to get that put on my card. So Shasta Dam, the river, all of these things. You know, I could have told you a different way of discussing this dam and how it's affected us. But I wanted to let you use your own mind for those first few moments. Use your own mind, because I can describe to you our river, but each of you has your own river in mind. When I asked you to think about it, what did it sound like? You weren't hearing my river unless you're from the Winnemem. You were hearing your own. And each of you was thinking of your own places that are important to you. So I ask again, what's it like to be a Winnemem? Each of you is what it's like to be a Winnemem. You're a human being. We are all connected. We are all related. We all have some intrinsic need to help each other, to listen to each other. As Grandma earlier said, you have to be able to listen to all of these things. You have to be able to hear all of these things. Talk to the water. You can apologize to it, you talk to it, talk to everything. Listen to the trees. If you listen a little bit more than you talk, sometimes you hear a little bit better. But you have to be there. You have to be there in that moment, in that space. And I know that we have a lot of things going. I don't know, they've been probably flashing them things with the 1 and 2 and whatever. I don't know what that means. But I did want to share these few words with you because, you know, I've been to Oregon so many times that I feel like I'm an Oregonian. I feel like I am from the Middle Cascades. And I love this campus. I love this longhouse. And I love the other one down at that other school. But I have always felt welcome. I've always felt received in a good way. And you've always taken good care of me. And you've taken care of my family who's come with me on this trip. And so we have more speakers, and I'm going to turn it back over to Stan. But I do want to thank you all so much for listening to me. Sometimes I will ramble. Sometimes it's sort of like when you're making stuff, making bread, or if you know you've seen people that got that wheat, acorn, and they got it in a little sifter, and their wind comes and takes this part off and takes this part. It maybe it washes everything away, but at the bottom of that little sifting thing, there's always a few kernels that you can make something with. And so what I'm hoping from what I've talked to you tonight about, there may be a few little kernels in there that you can make something with and use it for your own good. So thank you all very much.